Right, well, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for being here. We're humbled that you're here. Whew, we're still trying to get over this morning's emotional opening session. Gosh, that was awesome. So, so welcome to the Breaking Ground with Alternative Delivery presentation. It's interactive, so please have your phones ready to go. My name is Mike Midkiff, and this is my colleague Matt McCarter. We're glad that you're here. We're certainly going to build on Mr. Hale's good vision that he lined out regarding the cadence and 3 per year. We're going to build on that for this presentation. So today we're going to talk about what is a design build. That's just a quick overview and a definition of design build, as well as a legislative authority. We'll also on what makes a project a good candidate for design build. Matt and I were going to attempt a lighthearted skit with audience participation that highlights characteristics of a good design build project. How can PFD help? Again, that's just how can our division support the districts in identifying and progressing design build projects if they wish. And then we'll end up with Q&A. So again, thank you, welcome. Thank you for being here. We've got a lot to do quickly, so Matt, please.
Okay. Well, when the first polling slide comes up, I think there'll be instructions on how to enter your phone. You'll text a code to a number, and then at that point you'll get a response saying you're entered into the room. And when the questions come up, you'll enter the options on the screen. So I hope it works. So getting started with what is design build. In its simplest form, design build is a contract where the design and the construction are both included in the project that's transferred over to the private developer. Contrast this to design bid build, where the owner or TxDOT will procure a full set of drawings. At that point, they take it out to the market for fixed-priced bids to build that scope. The risk for design errors or changes lies with the owner, and on design build, that's transferred over to the developer. Additionally, it does have design included in the contract. It's still, though, primarily a construction contract. It can include some additional scopes, such as right-of-way acquisition, environmental permitting, utility relocations. Now, the level that this is included is a little bit up to the discretion of the district. If the district would like to purchase all the right-of-way prior to launching it, they certainly can do that. If they want to advance it up to a certain point and then during the procurement say, we're stopping here at 40%, the rest of the 60% will be up on you, developer, upon award of the contract. So there is some flexibility on how much is transferred over and how much is still done in-house. And then finally, why do we use design build? What's the benefit? What's the point? Mainly it's intended to save time by performing some of those tasks concurrently downstream that might have been done linearly under a design bid build project. There are great opportunities for value engineering and cost savings by getting the designers and the constructors in the same room early on. There is risk transfer that the design build contractor owns the design and construction, so there's less chance for change orders and schedule delays. And then finally, and perhaps most importantly, is by doing all of the things that I just said, it does allow the owner, or the public, I should say, to realize a faster return on their investment. If we can open a road 6 months sooner, we're all benefiting from that. That's the return on our investment, our tax dollars. So, on to the polling, right out of the gate. As you can see there, you'll need to text TSC 2017 to the number 22333. And then the question is, for those of you that may be familiar with the TxDOT Design Build program, what is the range in projects that the TxDOT has done for past design build projects? Does it range from 140 to 500 million? 80 million to 1.4 billion, or 500 million to 3 billion. We'll give a few seconds for people to get their phones synced in and
All right, I think we're good. And the answer is?
So the audience thought it was B, for those that were able to get their votes turned in. And they're correct. The answer is B. The smallest design build project TxDOT has done is the US 77 down in Corpus, so it's 84 million. And the largest is the I-35E in North Dallas, which is currently going almost totally finished. And that one's valued at 1.4 billion. Now we're sticking with the polling. So The next question is, can advancing a project as design build allow TxDOT to spend construction funds sooner than they normally would under a design bid build project? So cast your votes. Let's give it a few more seconds.
I think everyone woke up from lunch.
People have been paying attention.
All right. Let's go ahead.
Okay. So the audience thought it was A, and the audience is correct. Advancing a project as design build can allow you to spend, the owner, to spend money faster, and Mike is going to tell us how that's possible.
Okay, so the answer was yes, you can expend construction dollars sooner. And so the next couple of slides are a visualization of how that could occur. This particular slide is your prototypical design bid build delivery whereby the triangle there represents contract letting or contract execution, and all of your upfront project milestones, your environmental, your utility relocation, your right-of-way acquisition, your detailed design, all that has to be complete before you can go to letting and before a lick of construction can ever start. However, for a design build, if you keep your eye on the triangle representing contract execution, again, that can be accelerated to where you're expending those contract dollars sooner. And all that's really needed to reach contract execution is a 30% schematic and some procurement or contract documents in order to select a DB contractor. It's the DB contractor that will optimize all of the project milestones. Again, the utilities, the right-of-way, the design and the construction based on what makes sense for accelerating the project and keeping costs down. An example of that would be, let's say there's a major utility that's a conflict. Well, if on design bid build, you'd have to wait for all of the right-of-way and all the utilities to be adjusted before you could go out to let and relocate it, potentially, versus, and the design would have to work around that. However, for design build, that's on the DB contractor can work that into their schedule, adjust that, and have the remaining efforts, design, utilities, detailed design, ongoing at the same time that the adjustment is going on. So certainly there's a lot of benefit to the design build delivery system in terms of time and costs.
All right. Moving on, what can we do? How can we use the design build legislative authority that's been given to us? This is going to be a little bit repetitive to what we just heard from Mr. Hale, but it's already in the slide, so you're going to hear it again. The Chapter 223 of the Transportation Code is what originally authorized TxDOT to enter into design-build contracts with a single entity to provide both the design and construction of these roads. This section in the Transportation Code limited us to 3 projects per year. Now, that's 3 projects that reach execution per fiscal year, not 3 that we start the procurement, not 3 that are ongoing in procurement, not 3 that have been awarded. It's the signed, executed contract docs. 3 of those per year is what we're limited to. Originally, when this was introduced, the cap on the minimum size we were allowed to use this on was $50 million projects. However, in 2015, House Bill 20 amended this amount to raise that number to $150 million. That's for both the design and the construction can be added into to get to that $150 million amount. So, moving on.
So Matt, real quick,
Sure.
Quick question. What goes into a design build cost?
Well, that's great. I'll answer that in just 1 second.
Okay.
So, on the project categories that make a project a good design build candidate, some are black and white, like the $150 million. Some are various shades of gray, like we said earlier, the level of utility, relocation, right-of-way, permitting. But as Mike was just asking, yeah, the $150 million, that includes both the design and construction efforts and the professional services that are used to get to that, to build that project. That can be from surveying, geotech investigation, right-of-way acquisition services, permitting, basically anything that's except for the actual purchase price of the land. That cannot be included in the $150 million. So, great question. Additionally, you wanted to identify a project as potentially a design build early on. So you're not more than 30% into your schematic design, and as well as if you've already purchased all the right-of-way, if there is little to no utility relocation, if the permits, you've already got them, and you've already got 100% schematic, you probably would want to develop that design bid build. But if you can not spend all that money in-house or through consultants and identify it as a design build project, then you don't have to spend that money up front. Additionally, complexity. We've got the word complexity on there, but basically the big takeaway right there is innovation. If it's just a two-lane road and we're adding a third lane, just adding existing or pavement to the existing pavement, probably not a lot of room for innovation on that project. But if this is a project in a highly congested area with interchange reconstructions, direct connectors, or it's in an area with a lot of cut and fill, stuff like that, those kind of projects have got a lot of opportunity for innovation to occur by when you get the designers and the constructors in the same room. How can we build it? How can we design it to optimize this? That's where you really realize a lot of those cost savings. For example, the SH-183 Managed Lanes project in Dallas, which is currently under construction, the department is receiving about $1.2 billion in scope improvements for a price of $850 million. This was realized through just optimizing the design and also through the competitive procurement process that always requires our developers to sharpen their pencil and give us the best price in order to win those projects. The site conditions. If there's a chance for significant field changes, design changes due to unknown site conditions, then it might be advantageous for us to enter this project into the design build category to be able to shift that risk over to the developer that can adjust their team, their workforce appropriately to adhere to their schedule. And finally, the alternative delivery support tool. This is something we've developed over the past year. Christy Flaggs was monumental in developing that tool. And basically, it's a tool that there's a lot of inputs, like we just discussed. Your right-of-way, the size of your project, the complexity, site conditions. A lot of these inputs are put into this tool, and eventually it kind of spits out a score, which helps us. It's not the only thing we go by. There's still the human element is very important, but it does help us. It's another tool to help us make the best educated guess we can on if that
Matt,
project might work.
We should probably remind the audience that this is the same tool that Mr. Hale was referencing in his opening remarks. So,
Yes.
Certainly want to use that to assist us. So, all right, well, we're going to, we referenced the lighthearted skit earlier on with the audience participation. So now that we know the characteristics that go into making a project design build eligible, it's time to play the alternative delivery dating game, where you, the audience, get to play project matchmaker. And so I'm your host. Please give a warm welcome to our eligible bachelor, Mr. Design Build.
Thank you, Mike. Everyone calls me Mr. Design Build, but you can just call me Matt for this game.
All right.
I'm hoping to find the project with all the right characteristics. I know would be a good match for me. I'm ready to find my other half.
All right.
But I need you, audience, so to keep your phones out.
Well, Matt, you know the rules of the game. Let's review them with our studio audience. So we've identified 3 projects that are eagerly awaiting to find out if they're the match for you, Mr. Design Build. Previously, we've interviewed these 3 projects to get some background regarding their cost, their design development status, their complexity, and their site conditions. And we're going to reveal the details of those interviews for each of the projects. And then we're going to ask the studio audience at the end to cast your vote as to whether or not which project or projects of the 3 you believe are a good match for Mr. Design Build. So, you ready to play alternative delivery dating game?
I am stoked. Let's get to it.
Let's do it. So, coming out of sheet number 1, project number 1 hails from the great Metroplex. It has an $850 million estimated price tag, and it's very complex.
I like expensive and complex. Tell me more.
Well, this project number 1 has an approved environmental process, and it also has a preliminary schematic for both the ultimate and the interim. So it's a 2-step process.
Well, that sounds good to me. A phased delivery in an already congested corridor, it certainly sounds challenging. What else can you tell me about this project?
Well, this project also has significant utility relocation needs, as well as some of the right-of-ways acquired, but much of it is yet to be acquired.
Sounds right up my alley. But I do have one more question. Let's talk about commitment. Has there been any sort of completion commitment to the locals?
Well, that's a really good question because, yes, there is a political commitment to open this to traffic before 2019.
Well, I tell you, this project has some very attractive traits. I don't want to rush into a relationship too soon. I've done that in the past, so I want to hear about the other two contestants before I get ahead of myself.
All right, well, then on to project number 2. So project number 2 has a lush lake view, and it's a $300 million estimated cost. It's not as complex, and it does hail from North Texas.
It sounds slightly high maintenance, but I'd like to hear more.
Well, in terms of maintenance, by the way, it is going to be completed and turned over to the local toll authority for maintenance, so funny you should mention that. In addition to the $300 million price tag, it also has an approved environmental process, and it also has a 2-step phased preliminary and ultimate schematic.
Interesting. Can you tell me anything about utilities or right-of-way?
Again, there is significant utility relocation needs, and unfortunately, all the right-of-way is already acquired.
Already acquired? I generally prefer my right-of-way unacquired. So I think I can live with that, but is there anything else you can tell me about Project 2?
Well, I know how much you like commitments, so yes, this one has a political commitment as well. So,
Well, I do like a project with deadlines that make me sweat a little bit.
I hear you. So,
Okay, what about number 3?
well, number 3 hails from our Gulf Coast. It has beachfront views and some of the best hunting and fishing in South Texas. It is an $84 million estimated cost. It is low complexity. It's just essentially upgrading from a U.S. to an interstate facility. Lots of roadway widenings, et cetera.
Coastal, yeah. I'm kind of allergic to nature, Mike. I'm what you might call an indoor cat. But please continue.
Okay. Well, this one does have a record of decision, so the environmental is completed as well as it has an approved schematic design.
Yeah. EISs tend to make me hyperventilate. But
and I mean everybody.
no, okay, I'm kidding. Okay, let's hear about the utilities and right-of-way, please.
Well, this is a pretty simple project from the standpoint there is no significant utility relocations, and again, other than an occasional corner clip, all the right-of-way is already acquired.
Okay. So that just gets me back to one of my favorite questions is commitment, right? When I was a young Mr. Design Build, I tended to shy away from commitment, but I think I'm ready for it now.
Well, I hate to break your heart, but this one does not have a commitment, so apologies for that, and there's no permitting, but...
Okay. Well, this is challenging. A lot of these projects all have some similarities, but also some notable differences. It's a difficult decision for me to make, but I think I've made my decision.
Whoa, hang on. We need to poll the audience.
Oh, yes, please.
And so everyone get their phone out, and we're going to ask you, we'll do one project at a time. Vote now for whether or not you think project number 1
Next slide.
is a good candidate for Mr. Design Build in terms of for Design Build. All right. And project number 2, a quick reminder, the $300 million with the lake view. Please vote now. And last but not least, project number 3, hailing from the Gulf Coast, with some of the best hunting there is, I might add, King Ranch. So Matt, what do you think about the results?
Well, the results are in. It's pretty overwhelming on all 3 of them, although number 2 seemed to have a little bit of a split decision, but it looked like the audience thinks that number 1 and number 2 are good candidates, and number 3 is not.
Well, let's review what does make a good candidate for design build. Project number 3, we slid a trick question in on you because if, unfortunately, project number 3 had an $84 million estimated cost, which is below the $150 million legislative threshold. So sorry for throwing you a trick question, but we just wanted to make sure you're awake. Projects 1 and 2, both strong design build results on the alternative delivery support tool that Mr. Hale is referring to. One was a little bit stronger with 0.46 because it was a little more complicated, a little more expensive, as well as on the top 100 congested roadways. Project 2 is also a strong design build candidate project, so you really have 2 to choose from.
Well, I, for one, am a happy camper. I came in here thinking I was just going to get one. Now I'm going to have one on each arm. So.
Well, good for you. So.
All right, we'll continue on real quickly with another question. We're talking about TxDOT's experience with design build. How many design build projects do you think TxDOT has developed or advanced?
So 5 to 10, 11 to 15, or 16 to 20? All right. Well,
Okay, some are still trickling in, but it seems like looks like that most of the audience thinks it's B. It's actually C. TxDOT has developed or advanced 16 design build projects. And on the next slide, we will kind of get into those. This is sort of an overview of what the experience TxDOT has done. The first 2 boxes, the dark blue on top and the brown in the middle, those are the ones that are currently in design and construction. The only difference between the 2 is the top box were developed under the CDA Design Build Authority, which is the only difference between that and regular Design Build Authority is that it allows the opportunity for developer financing. The ones in the brown can still have financing, but it might be in the form of debt or loans, federal loans. And then finally, the box on the bottom is the ones that have been built and are currently in operation and maintenance. So as our program is getting more mature, we'll have more and more projects entering into the operations and maintenance phase. Now, in summary, this is also going to be a little bit repetitious of what Mr. Hale said, but we've got 3 slots in the future for each year for design build projects. We're eagerly trying to fill all those slots. Today we think we've tried to show you what some of the characteristics of make a good design build project are, and we're happy to help support any of the districts identify projects or evaluate them through our alternative delivery support tool and just try and get more projects built, I guess.
So with that, is there any questions?
Yes, sir?
Are we doing any
Sorry.
design build projects that aren't told?
The question is, are we doing any design build projects that are not told? And the answer is absolutely yes.
Yes, I think that if you stick around, there's another presentation that may address that. But design build does not always equal tolling. In fact, it doesn't. That's only one component to be added if you want to add the tolling element, but it does not. They're not married together.
Any other questions? So the question was, what goes into the decision on whether it's tolled or not?
That is, well, Mr. Hale is the one who can. I would never, ever presume to speak for Mr. Hale in administration, so I welcome your response.
I guess what we're doing is the decision was whether, first of all, the local people, the ones that had it. Secondly, is if you, primarily, management project, for traffic. So it's a lot of things went into it. It's a political issue as far as how you do it. But for the most part, if the locals wish to do that and it brings the project faster than later, it allows for that to happen, and help put it together. So there's a usually it's in a metropolitan area, downtown area, and the locals have worked so hard to get the thing ready, they wish to have some sort of element in there. And if you have the ability to manage the traffic, because in most cases, it's a managed lane. A managed lane is the traffic management tool, and not necessarily a profit or a way to make dollars off the project. It's to manage the traffic in where you have a frontage roads, general purpose lanes, and then through traffic, which is typically the managed lanes that you have right there. And that system is what creates it. It doesn't make dollars when it comes to
pass. That's what it is.
So
So as they say
a
at
lot of
Texas
things wrapped up
A&M
in toll viability, basically.
Right. So as I say at Texas A&M, what he said. So, all right.
All right.
Christie, I know we're a little short on time. Are we
I
good?
think we're at the end of our session, Crystal. All
So,
right.
so again, the takeaway is there's 3 slots per fiscal year. I think administration's clear that we need to fill them with the design build project, so let us know how we can help. Thank you.